got a little bit done this weekend. Interior's all finished off. While I was doing that, I decided I was going to build some little covers for the plenum access holes that I've cut. So in the tow truck. So rough idea. What I've ended up doing is actually putting them in the backside here. The reason I did that was actually because these trucks have the left-hand wiper holes still in them, in the back of the plenum. What Ford did was just they stuck a plate over it, a few spot welds, and just send it. So problem is, it started to take off and rust out behind there. So what I ended up doing was just cutting the whole lot out, making it an even shape, both left and right. And yeah, I've made plates to actually go over here, and they'll probably just be urethane adhesive sealanted, whatever you want to call it, over the back. So the reason I've mainly done that is once the bottom side goes on the plenum, I really need to be able to access in here to finish it off, spray in there, do what I need to do. But also I can Fisherline it or cavity wax it, whatever I decide to do. And then every sort of few years or whatever, when I feel necessary, I can take them covers off. It is going to be a little bit hard being under the dash, but I can still access it from there, spray in there, and yeah, it should keep this thing alive, hopefully. So the reason I did it on the back side on this one is because I actually want to sort of try and keep it smooth on the front. So I didn't really want to sort of do panels in the front, just mainly for what I'm going with this truck, plus dash is out. So yeah, you sort of got to size up your fight to which way you're going to battle it. But yeah, so I've done it like that for this one. But yeah, these are the plates that I've made. So yeah, just a bit of sheet steel, bead rolled it, cut it to shape. So these plenum cutouts here, I cut these out ages ago, long before I started bodywork. And it was mainly for access, because once I welded the bottom of the plenum on, I really needed to get in there to spray it and seal it, because I've welded through and it would have burnt back. So if I left that, it would have just gone rusty again. Plus there's a few other things I needed to do. So wiper motor, one of the little tacked on nuts on the back broke off. So I had to perform some magic to get that back through. So yeah, it's been really handy to have these cutouts here. And it's the one thing that Ford should have done, but they never did. So yeah, this plate now goes over here like this. Line him up. So yeah, rough idea of how it's going to look. Same on the other side. And then yeah, if you ever need to get in there, just take the plate off and then do your thing. Yeah, for the most part, this thing's pretty close. I did a heap of sanding last night, so there's just a couple of small rub throughs that I've got to reprime again. I have been running through the fuel system, starting to set that up, plan that out, and get that sorted for the tow truck. So I am using a lot of race fittings and whatnot. It's not full fucking hectic bloody race job, but I've got a heap of fittings left over. I may as well use them. And also, it's less likely for any leaks and all that sort of shit. So, plus it'll be good filter, good reg, and it's actually going to have a return line on it, which I've been a bit of a sucker for not doing. And yeah, just going to make a decent, solid fuel system. Still going to have a little bit of hose in it, but for the most part, it's going to be fittings and the stainless steel hardline that I've had left over from the Corolla. So, in my opinion, that's the best way to go. Do not run just rubber hose from front to rear. That's just stupid. But also, the Datsun's sorting things out for that, because the other night, some fuckwit was nice enough to back into it while I was in at the supermarket. Even though there was probably 4 cars on that whole side of the road, yeah, that fuckwit decided to park next to me. Don't know who it is. They fucked off. But yeah, I just don't understand why you really got to pull in next to someone. It's a bit like when you go to the urinal and some bloke pulls up next to you for a piss. It's fucking weird. It's stupid. But anyway, so yeah, there are some absolute pieces of shit out there, and yeah, I've just had to wear the brunt of it. So the quarter's not overly bad, but it's still not good, and we can't leave it down here. That's just the place we live in. So luckily I've got insurance. Fuel parts are now turning up for the fuel system of the tow truck. So the new reg's turned up. So this is pretty much the same as the old style silver one, which is this fella here. This one actually, inlet comes through the bottom, and then it's got 2 outlets, and either you block off one for a single carb, or you run that to your second carby. Not a bad little unit. This one, a little bit different, same unit, but the inlet is actually either side, so you can go in or out, as it says there. And then your return actually goes through what you'd call the bottom of the other one. So yeah, it's a return style reg. It's also got a little port for boost reference, and also another port for a gauge. So that's actually a good idea. That's sort of taken a fitting out of the line and pretty much just mounted the gauge straight to the reg, which has cleaned things up a lot. What I've ended up doing is this Holly Blue pump. So this actually let me down in the wagon quite a while ago. It wasn't making pressure, and I ended up just taking it out, putting a Holly Black pump in there, and it's been pretty good. Pulling this apart, just thought I'd humour it anyway. I found that the actual bypass, which is behind that, I don't know, flat blade, screw, whatever you want to call it, was actually half stuck open. So that was probably what was happening. It was just bypassing and causing this pump to actually not do what it was meant to. So I pulled everything apart, and then I ended up bit of WD-40, and then I pulled the motor out, checked all that, everything was fine, and then put power to it, and the thing seems to be running fine. So I'm going to try it, I reckon. So also the other thing that I'm leaning towards is how I'm going to run it. There's an outlet at the bottom of the tank facing backwards. Possibly may need a sump in it, I don't know yet, just because it's a massive, I'm thinking it's 150 litres easy size tank. When the fuel gets low, if it goes to the front for any reason, it's got a lot more distance to take away from the pickup or the outlet of the tank, where the smaller, squarer 70 litre tanks don't really have that distance to go. So possibly it may cause us issues, but anyway, so I'm thinking what I'll do is that can sit at the bottom of the tank, so the fuel rush backwards. And also, if it was to ever shit itself, the Corolla's got one, plus Aeroflow. Nearly everybody sells those cheap replicas. So it'd probably be more of a likely pump to get us out of the shit. So I think that's the way we're going to go. I'm still waiting on a bracket for that pump. A lot better than the original ones. Just try and keep the vibration down and the noise. Also, all the other fittings are still not here yet. So once all that's here, I can start sort of setting up how I'm going to mount it, do brackets. And yeah, and then all I really need to do is get a new fuel sender for the tank. Basically, the outlet is now going to be the return inlet to the tank, hopefully. That's the plan anyway. It mightn't work, but that's sort of the direction I want to go. So at least I've got the fuel level sender, but also it doubles as a return port for the return style rig there. Show you the new tool in the shed, and it's not me turning up. But for 150 bucks, I couldn't complain with, the purchase. So tube straightener. So this is just one off eBay. Pretty good bit of kit, and yeah, like it's pretty nice. I'm happy with it. So as you can see, there's some stainless steel hardline here. So this is left over from the Corolla. The problem is with this stuff, aluminium's a lot easier to straighten, but this stuff was a bit of a nightmare. I did get it done in the Corolla, but half the time you just end up with this slight sort of roll, which is just the direction it was coiled, and it makes life a pain in the ass. Also, I'll be doing fuel line, and then I'll also be doing brake lines at some point. So this will also do the small size 3/16 brake line, and it goes all the way up to 1/2 inch. Would have been awesome if it went to 5/8, because then I could do some heater piping, but we'll have to come up with a different idea for that, I think. So, but for the money worth, I'm pretty happy with it. So don't hold me to it, but the Aeroflow ones, they may be better, but from what I can see, I can't really see any difference in them, except for one's got an Aeroflow emblem on it, which is not really worth another $100 in my opinion. So take your pick, but I think this will do the trick for me. And yeah, pretty happy with it. So hopefully it goes pretty well. I haven't tried it yet, so I suppose we can give it a go now. So usually I just sort of stand on this and you just sort of slowly work it out. You don't want to get too excited because you may risk trashing the tubing. But yeah, pretty much just slowly walk it out. And then yeah, so as you can see, it's still a bit curved. Probably a bit hard, but anyway, so feed him through there like that. Maybe not.
1 hour later.
We're through now, finally. So you just wind him down a bit until there's a bit of pressure, and pretty much run him through. Make some fancy sounds when you do it. And then yeah, once it straightens out, probably need to just a little bit more tension. But as you can see, that's straightened that out big time. So that's the plan, and that's the reason I've bought one. I've been wanting one for a long time, just never got my shit together to get one, so that should come in very handy. So the only thing I've got to do now is get my shit together and build the base for the vise instead of G-clamping it to the table. These turn up, so these are just aluminium shifters. So these aren't the big branded ones, but they still work pretty well. So I know most of us are a little bit guilty of doing it at least once, but I've done it nearly every fitting I've ever bought is scratch the living shit out of it because I use steel spanners. So a couple of these, for what they're worth, not too bad. Like, they are a little bit loose in the jaw, but nothing worse than what you'd see at a nightclub. They'll do the trick. Fuel fittings. This is pretty much the bulk of what we're going to be using. This hose, pretty cheap. It's actually from the same mob. So there's about 5 meters worth there. It's pretty much good for most fuels. And it's just good to have extra because you always usually end up needing some hose. So down the track I may even stock up a bit more, get some 1/2-inch hose and a few other sizes, just because it's very handy to have that shit hanging around. So the rough idea is fitting in the bottom of the tank, rubber hose to the other fuel filter when it gets here, into the pump, through the pump, return will go back and obviously bank into like I just said, and then this one will actually go around, up, and then the steel line will actually come up, fold into the chassis, go right, and then head forwards again. So it is sort of doing a U-turn, but I don't really want to mount it underneath the cab because it's noisy and I want it away from the cab, and it's more easier access to it if it's behind the fuel tank. Plus you always, most of the time you're driving forward, so the fuel will want to push to the back of the tank, which means this will always have good supply. It'll pick up from the bottom, and I think it will be right. It's all sort of coming together, looking not too bad. What I can do now though is sort of start figuring out the tubing to come off here, where it's going to run, go back in the chassis rail. Last weekend we had loose nuts over in stall. Yeah, it's been that long since I last checked in. It's now bloody November, still acting like July those, which is a pain in the ass, but anyway. So yeah, went over to stall, and yeah, it was a good weekend. It was good to catch up with everyone, get back out there, enjoy ourselves. Rain made it a little bit hard, so we didn't quite get the final skids we wanted, but yeah, Russell, Elise and the crew yeah, made it happen for the most part, as much as they could do, and yeah, they did an awesome job. So yeah, the wagon went pretty well. Yeah, it was not a bad weekend. Took out third with the wagon, so that was pretty good in the street class. Yeah, very surprised about that. I was not really expecting anything, but I drove on the trailer, and that's all I'm worried about. Drove off the trailer. It's now, yeah, sitting there ready to go for spring nuts in about 3 weeks from memory. So yeah, it's getting a bit chaotic this time of the year now. So yeah, the fuel pump's set up for the tow truck. So you probably saw it as fairly basic. Nothing was really sort of finished off. Well, this is pretty much as it sits is the way it's going to be. So pretty much, yeah, pump, reg, filter from tank goes up. So the black line, that'll be the return line. That'll go onto the top of the tank, so that's about there somewhere. And then, yeah, the steel line, I've folded all that up all the way to the end. As you can see, there's shit everywhere, so yeah, the shed needs a clean as well. But yeah, that was a mission and a half, but we got that done. And then obviously this is from the joint up there, comes up the firewall, around to this 90-degree piece, and then basically that goes straight to the carby. So pretty simple, and the reason I've joined it is ease of removal, access. It's also the reason I've run it the way I have, just because trying to feed it in behind shit and whatnot, once you do it, you can't get it back out. So the way I've done it, if you need to, you can remove the whole shoot match and start again, or change things, vice versa, if you need. So yeah, it's all pretty simple. Built this block here so it actually spaces, so this is actually electric EFI pump bracket, and I've made it, well, bought the right one to suit the size of the cylinder on this pump. So yeah, hopefully this pump will be right. Done a little notch just so you can get the Allen key onto it. Pretty good. Also, I've set this up, it's meant to have a grommet on there, but I'm not really ready for it just yet. And yeah, that's basically going to hold the plug. So the plug's going to come from here, and then basically all you can do is just plug straight in the side. Wiring will go to the chassis, back up the front where I've started to run wiring and whatnot. Then all I did was get some 1/2-inch hardline spacers or separators, and then drilled this side out to suit the size of the hose, because obviously the OD of the hose is bigger than the hardline. Yeah, just took it easy, because you don't really want to wreck them. And yeah, that just keeps the line separated. The clutch line's all set up now, so goes through there. I've tried to sort of taper it around the shape of this, and then it goes down, cuts a U-ey, goes along there. It's sort of sitting up at the moment, just until I get some clamps sorted on it. And then yeah, it goes through here, and then that'll sort of be taken in a bit further. Obviously a brake clamp there, and then yeah, flexi line down to there. Probably can't see it, but yeah, there's a little bracket that goes off the back there, takes up one of the bell housing bolts, and then basically goes down steel line into the slow cylinder. Tried to keep it away from the exhaust as much as I can, and yeah, that's pretty much that done. So we now have, yeah, hopefully working clutch. I've still got to fill it and bleed it, but for the most part, that's pretty much that sorted. This is just a bit of an idea I've been wanting to try, and fuck it, you may as well do it on your tow truck of all things. No, it's not a show truck, but I wanted to try it, so this is the best candidate for it. So yeah, some 5/8 aluminium hardline. So I probably will have to do something where I put an anode or something in there that stops these from obviously eating away. But most coolant these days is pretty good for that, but just to be safe, I'll do something. What it is yet, I haven't quite decided which way I want to go with it, but for the main part, the tubes are there, they're sorted. So yeah, they just come out of here. So what I'm going to do is actually just get some more heater tubing. It's actually already got the pre-made bends, chop it up, and then yeah, come out of here and out of there into the tubing, and then also do a couple of 90s onto the firewall there, and just run some hose clamps. And yeah, the reason I've done this is the original one, so the original hose I had was all chopped up. To get another one, they stick out and then they just hang all over everything, and they usually run about there somewhere, and they're just a fucking pain in the ass. So I thought I might as well try it with the tubing. Buy a roll of tubing, at least I've got the tubing there for other jobs as well in the future, and see if it'll work. So that's the way I've done that. And yeah, it's come up pretty good. So the way I did all the bending and whatnot and actually figured out where I wanted to go, pretty simple. Piece of wire. So this is actually the sort of around the firewall for the clutch line. So I just marked it where I sort of had me tubing starting. Marked my familiar point there because I already had up the firewall done. Basically just bent this to what I needed, and then yeah, went from there. And then I sort of here I've just decided to do my own thing anyway. Doing this also gives you your length, so then you measure it, figure out what you need, and yeah, in my opinion, a little bit longer does save you in the end. If you come up short and you've just bent the whole thing but you're 50 mil short, yeah, it'll fuck your day pretty well. So I've got some fittings and stuff, so I end up going to Sunbury Brakes. So they were the ones that actually sold me the clutch and all those other bits and pieces, and they've been pretty good. I ended up buying a heap of fittings, so I sort of started myself a bit of a fittings container. Wires run in there, and then yeah, it goes through. The beauty of that thickness of wire is you can actually poke it just up inside the outlet there, and that actually keeps it where it needs to be, centers it up and gives you a rough idea of where it's going to land. So yeah, it's not everyone's preferred way to do it, but it's a way I've seen that works. And the long piece was sort of probably too much of a pain in the ass, so I've ended up going for a short piece. And yeah, I'll see if I can get it out. So yeah, gives you a rough idea of how it's looking. It'll look a lot tidier once it's in the brake tube, but yeah, if I follow everything fairly close to what it is here, it should all fit in pretty much where it needs to be. So that means that yeah, I've got now a bit of a template, a bit of a rough sort of map where I want to go, and I can yeah, start folding up the other one and get that figured out. What I can see is I'll bend all this up, no worries, and then I'll put it in. But once I start sort of getting over to this side and bending it up to match the shape and everything to follow and whatnot, I reckon I'm going to run into trouble where I can't physically get it in or out just due to the motor being there. So probably what I should have done was follow the lines up before the motor went in. But it's yeah, it's one of those things, it's hindsight and you learn from it. Keeping in mind, you've also got to run it so it's not going to get heated up by your extractors. So like that's reasonably close there, but it should be more than fine. And I've got no real choice because of this. I may lay the bracket over a little bit though, so that might change a few things, but for the most part it probably won't cause too much issue. Yeah, so that's what I've got to keep in mind. Another piece of tube now. So this is going to be the start of yeah, the piece to go the other side. Just going to sort of bend up the first bit and sort of wing it and see where I go from there. That's all straightened out thanks to the new tube straightener. That thing's working pretty good. Yeah, so what I'll do now is I'll start bending it to the shape of this thing here, and I'll probably yeah, do a flare, put my first fitting on just so that's out of the way. I can lock it in if I need to, and then yeah, main thing is I'll get it to a rough shape, hopefully enough where I can actually just feed it down in there and it should sort of fit. We'll see. It's yeah, one of those things, it's just trial and error, so I'm going to try it now. If it doesn't work, I'm going to probably be bending things and trying to force shit in there, and then I'm probably going to have to straighten it all back out once it's in there. So hindsight's a great thing. So next time if I was to do this, yeah, lines will go in before the motor gets done. And yeah, so when I do this fella behind me, completely different kettle of fish, but we'll be keeping that one in mind. Brake line all folded up, tube nuts on, and yeah, it's looking pretty good. So the little wire piece, the dummy piece, this fella here, definitely was a good idea. It had that made in no time and it fit pretty much straight away with minimal tweaking and whatnot. So yeah, the wire is a good idea. I don't mind the idea of doing that. It was just something I thought of. Other people probably do the same, but yeah, it's just I thought, well, piece of wire is only a little bit smaller, but it's easy to use, it's easy to get, and you're not wrecking your nice stainless tubing. You're getting rid of some old fencing wire. Gives you a rough idea where you're going anyway. So yeah, did all that. So for the most part, it should fit back in. It is going to be a bit of a mission. It was before, but I'm pretty confident that nothing really has changed since then, so it should just fit back in there. So I've gotten pretty lucky with that, because I was definitely thinking that yeah, there's probably not going to be much chance of it making it back in, but we should be right. So I thought I'd do the rear piece as well. So this is from the front of the brake proportioning valve, and this is for the rear brakes. I haven't done this first bend yet, because if I was to do that, put the tube nut on, which I haven't got yet, I'm still waiting for, it wouldn't leave me enough room in the die for the flaring tool to actually do the flare. So sometimes, as good as it would be to just quickly bend that and call it done, yeah, you've got to think about that. Otherwise, yeah, you leave yourself no room. And this stainless tubing, it's good, but fuck, it's hard to bend or straighten back if you make a stuff up. So I've done quite a few doing this at the moment, and yeah, I've done some work just to try and bring it back. But anyway, so yeah, goes from there, follows pretty much the same track as that one, because they'll be running on the same cross member and everything under the motor, out of the way. And then it ends up in the passenger side chassis rail. What I've done is I've gone to a joiner. So the reason I haven't gone and just continued on with the big length going backwards is I want it segmented, for the fact of this is going to be a mission to get in there anyway. If it was had the big tail on there, I most likely would not even have a chance of even possibly thinking about putting it in there. So keeping it short will give me the option to, yeah, do that. Also, the other thing is too, if this ever got damaged, or the middle section got damaged for any reason, instead of having to basically do this in the truck or replace the whole line, you can just take out that segment, make a new one, and screw it all back together. So it is making a few more points to leak, but as long as your flares are done right, everything's tight, and it's not going to rattle loose or shake about or anything, it should be fine. So that's the reason I've done that. And yeah, for the length of the truck also, it's twice as long as this thing, and I reckon this has actually had joiners in it as well. So just because of the sheer length of it, good luck trying to feed just one piece of tubing all the way through the chassis rail. So yeah, the rough idea, it's probably going to be a bit hard with one hand, but yeah, basically as it goes out of the proportioning valve, that's pretty much where it's going to sit. And then yeah, it goes along down top of that cross member near the engine mount, down the side, along the back. It does fit better, but I can't really hold it in place at the moment. And then yeah, instead of going up to the top of the rail out to the brake, it actually goes to the bottom of the rail and follows it backwards. So yeah, so that's pretty much those done. So yeah, I'm just waiting on that, a few more fittings, so especially that one there, and then that's pretty much done. And then yeah, for the front brake line wires, it's pretty much just the two going to the master cylinder. So I've got the fittings there, but there are a few more that I wouldn't mind, well, I've got on the way, and I want to suss them out, because the ones I've got are, well, they are fairly long, where the ones I'm buying, they're off a different mob, and they are a bit shorter, so they're more like the original ones. And yeah, I reckon that's going to suit a lot better. So yes, I could just go and use all the old cruddy shit that's been half rounded off and whatnot, but I'm not going to do that. I want fresh fittings on it, fresh lines, and I want it all to last. That's pretty much that for the brakes. So I'm not sure what I'll get done this weekend when it comes to the other two lines and whatnot, because that means setting up the booster and all that sort of shit. I need to get going on the wheel tubs there, so that's probably going to be tomorrow's job. We now got a sheet of steel, so cheers to the old man for getting that. A little bit more work to do, but we're getting there, and that's the main thing. So anyway, it's pretty early in the morning, and I'm probably just talking shit, so yeah, I'll get home and see what comes of tomorrow.